Hey there. We are back. And you know what I've noticed this summer, Tasha, is that more than any before, as we drive across the country, there's fewer and fewer rigs on the road. And it surprised me. I won't lie, but rallies that we've been to this season, and yes, we've been still doing rallies. We're going to hop into that in a little bit. But there's a little more room, or there's a few more cancellations. We had 4 sites open next to us at the last event we went to. But Campgrounds also, I'm able to get last minute reservations, and I haven't been able to do that in like 5 years, 6 years, a long time.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then of course there's fuel prices. Everybody's talking about fuel prices, and it depends on where you are, how bad they are. Like we were in Texas. We just came across the Missouri border into Illinois last week, and Frank was like, over $5 a gallon for diesel. So, and I had already seen that because I'd been to Maine and back, but I don't think that's the whole story. I think that a lot of us are just kind of tired. And maybe RV staying home isn't just because of gas prices. Maybe it's some of us are finally giving ourselves a much needed break after 2020 and feeling like we had to do it all. So today we're going to hop in and talk about that. The summer slowdown. What does that really look like? Why is it happening? And why might it be one of the healthiest things you do for yourself this summer? All right. So let's talk about the burnout. Let's start there. So even for the rigs that are out there.
Yes.
It's a lot right now. And,
it is.
If you're not like us and you're not used to being with your family 24/7, your kids are home all day, and your activities, going to a campground, but the campgrounds aren't packed shoulder to shoulder. But I think what we really fall into is, let's call it the comparison trap. I'm guilty of it, looking at Instagram and seeing the reel and going, well, I'm not doing that this summer. Tasha, what about you? What do you think that, why do you think people that are out there living the dream, do they think they're doing RV life wrong?
I think that it comes down to, we talk a lot about you have this one life, and you want to make sure that you are making the most out of this one life that you have. And you don't know if you are given tomorrow. And I think that's a lot of the reason why many of us are living the RV life, is that we don't want to miss out on those moments with our loved ones. We don't want to miss out on the opportunity to see and experience things. And so I think sometimes it can become a must do instead of an opportunity to. It can become more of a rush to instead of a slow roll into. And I think that's where it can get a little mayhemy. It can turn into mayhem. It can turn into like a manic atmosphere if you don't keep an eye on it,
For sure. Yeah. So, obviously we are guilty of all of those things. But, our dynamic's very different. Owning RV roofing solutions, we have to be at rallies. We have to do some things. But even that, we're dialing back some of it. So we did the 2 big shows this summer, and they were kind of like big shows this summer. So they were way down in numbers from what we were used to seeing. So, we drove from Texas to Maine, and actually Frank and I never even saw each other. He was on a run out west, and he came home the night I left. And so definitely we went 6 weeks or so without seeing each other. No, longer than that by the time we got back. But, those rallies were much smaller than normal.
Yeah.
And they had a lot more local people to that area, which is not something we always see.
Yeah.
Maine, for example, was Escapade, and Escapade is now owned by Harvest Host. And so that rally was one of those things where you could be a Harvest Host member or an Escapees member or a Boondockers Welcome member. And that's the first time it's ever been that way. You could be any of those. But I met a lot more people from Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, all of the Northeast area. I would say probably at least a third of the people that went were literally from that area. So that was definitely different.
Probably people who had not been to the West Coast events previously, because that's just such a trek for them.
Right. And that's what they said, is this was their first event. 2/3 of the audience, this was actually their very first event. And so, while it was a great rally, it was a much smaller scale, which was kind of nice in some ways. It meant that you got to meet some people, hang out with some people that maybe you didn't already know. And there were a lot of new people. So it was different. kids being out of school for most people, unlike us road schoolers, that can change the whole rhythm of your life in the summer. And,
Right.
we have to be mindful for that too. I know you just recently interviewed Megan and Pete from
Yes.
our captain's logs, and they are just part timers, but their
Mhm.
rhythm is so different than somebody that's maybe full time. And
Yeah.
so I think that that's important to talk about too. Because I mean, like you and I, we roll in and our lives don't really
Stop.
change much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like people that just do this for the summer, maybe it's 1 or 2 weeks a year that they're doing this.
Yeah.
And so maybe they've
Well,
dropped
and I
that
think
back.
I thought it was really interesting what they were, Megan and Pete talked about how for them as part timers, because they are trying to navigate this in a way that kind of maximizes their time. It's something that blends into their sticks and bricks life too. So they hit the road, when they're out of school or when they're on vacation, but they're planning like way into the we're still at our jobs and school time, because they want to make sure that they are getting the most out of that. Whereas I think for us, sometimes I feel like we are next week, this campground opened up, like you were talking about. Let's go ahead and move there. Well, what can we do there next week? And so I think there's also just this like difference in how scheduling happens and how that can affect even just the ebb and flow of your day to day life. And really, like when I was talking to Megan and Pete and they were like, oh yeah, we've got daily, things planned out. We've got everything, he has logs, he has like things set. And I was like, man, I don't remember the last time I had that,
Right?
like Matt and I are going to take a bus to go see the island where we are because I'm like, I don't have time to plan a sightseeing tour right now. So we're going to let the public transportation sightsee for us.
We were in Texas for a good long time, and the heat definitely impacted what we were and were not doing, so that's a whole thing, right? Across the country.
Oh,
I think it's
yeah.
hotter this year in some places than ever before. And so there's less that you want to do. For us, Texas is kind of one of those places where the home office is and we have to be there for some things, but there's not a lot of hiking. Like, unless we want to
Yeah.
go to the mall and walk around, there's not that much to do because 90 miles away is the Gulf. And
Uh-huh.
so, and yes, there's Lake Conroe when we're there. And yes, we have kayaks. And yes, we do that. But, that's all we do when we're there if it's not seeing family. And so it
Right.
definitely played a factor. I think there's another side of this where we feel like I bought the RV, I paid for this lifestyle, I have to do it. Do you think that's
Yeah.
part of it?
I think so. And I think that a lot of it also comes down to, like I was talking about, like you just don't want to lose that moment that you have, you know? And so it's like I've committed to this. I've made this decision. I really need to make sure that like I've made the right decision and I have not wasted my time. I've not wasted my family's time. I've not wasted our money. I've not, it's like really got to make the most of it. It's funny because you're talking about the weather and we're in Maine right now visiting Rosewood and we literally had a day where it was in like the low 70s. And I was like, this is the most beautiful day ever. I am so happy. And then the very next day, it was in the high 90s with a heat index and we had heat warnings. And I went in to go pick Rosewood up to bring them out to the RV and to hang out for the day. And the traffic was insane in Bar Harbor. And I was like, I do not understand what is going on. And they said, well, it's because the temperature's gone up. Everybody thinks that they should go get in the water now. But at the same time, there are weather warnings for the water because the water in some places, the temperature is as low as 40 degrees. So you've got heat warnings, but you've got hypothermia warnings from the weather department for getting in the water. So, I think you have the I don't want to waste the weather. I don't want to waste the opportunity to take in the sights. I don't want to waste the moments that we have. I don't want to waste the money that we're spending. There's so many but what if I blow this questions in the
Yeah.
back of everyone's mind? What if I waste this moment? And I think sometimes in that scurry of trying to make a moment something, you can miss what the moment already is. And I think that's where it gets dangerous of trying to balance that.
Yeah, no, for sure. All right. So, let's go back to fuel economy a little bit. And, I've been privy to some conversations that we haven't actually, people don't know this, but we haven't recorded in well over a month because of how crazy life has
Mhm.
gotten. And
Yeah.
so, but Ben Hirsch, the COO of Campers Inn, put up an article on LinkedIn about the industry shift right now, but it's been coming for a long time. And it's not just the fuel prices, it's the whole industry. The whole industry is down between 19 and 26% across the board.
Yeah.
So if you're having a quieter year, you're really not just imagining it, it's actually real. And in the industry, we're seeing less people at rallies. We're seeing less buyers at rallies. And for those of us in business in this industry, that's definitely been an interesting problem. But if you're seeing a slowdown, you're not the only one. I actually have lots of friends that stayed in Florida to shuffle the Florida Shuffle. It's what we call it in Thousand Trails this summer. Now, I did that
Wow.
once. I stayed in Florida one summer. And that was in 2020 when the rest of the world decided to hit the road.
When you were stuck there.
We decided to stay put to see what was going to happen. And so we figured
Right.
if there was a place we had to be stuck, that was an affordable, not really, but affordable in that there's a lot of Thousand Trails parks in one
Right.
area. And there was tons of things to do. We could flip from the beach to inland, whatever that looked like weather-wise at the time. And we still had the option to leave if a hurricane came in. So that was our logic back then. This is a different kind of logic, though. So, like this week, for example, we came out of the Family RV Association rally, formerly FMCA,
Mhm.
and we were there for like 10 days. We had an install there. We met up with one of our other teams at that event. And then my daughter had somebody she wanted to go visit. So we are in this little tiny park that has not full hookups. It's a little tiny park, but it's been great. But we're leaving tomorrow. But we've decided to pivot just a little bit and stay in the area of St. Louis a little bit longer because we found a coast to coast park. Now, could we have gone
Oh,
further?
good.
Yes, we could have, but we're not. We're just going to slow down. And so this
Yeah.
timing on this episode is 100% perfect. But it's only 90 miles away, so it's not as much fuel as we'd be spending if we were going 300 or 400 miles. And so the thought process is just slow down, take a week, make some decisions, directions. We obviously have to be in Hershey by fall, but how do we
Mhm.
get there? My other show team is taking a lot of the heavy lifting on the shows for the rest of the season up in
Yeah.
Indiana, which is something we normally do. So it's going to be weird not to actually be at those rallies, but we might be close enough to pop in for a day to visit. Who knows? But we'll be able to slow crawl across compared to how fast we normally have to do it.
Yeah.
But I think you have to say it out loud. Like you're allowed to have a slower summer, like a boring
Yes.
one, maybe.
Yeah.
You don't owe anyone an adventure, not even on your
Mhm.
Instagram reel. You might not get as many views and followers, but that's okay. And you definitely don't owe anyone an explanation for why you're staying put this season.
Yeah.
You have to love people where they're at. And I say that all the time, but that includes you. It's one of those things that, we have to really stop and think about it. So on that note, Tasha and I have had some tough conversations about what the season looks like for us for season 3. And we've decided we
Mhm.
took out a little too much in season 2. Just a little bit.
Just a little.
So, I mean, we're going to dial it back in season 3 a little bit. And I know that's a couple months off at this point. But by the time we set out again at Hershey, the podcast will still be here, but it's going to be restructured a little differently. And so we don't know what that looks like quite yet. Maybe that means that we dial some of those community spotlights into regular episodes. I think that would be okay. It'll mean
Mhm.
there's less of them. So it means that those community spotlight series are going to be more limited and the application process might be a little different. But I think that's okay too.
Yeah. I think that's good though. It gives a little bit of variety to the content. It gives some time for rest and I don't know. It's a lot. Putting on a podcast is a lot. It's a lot more than just sitting down and talking for 40 minutes. There's a lot that goes into it, and
Well, and it's a ton behind the scenes that nobody sees. Like,
it is.
that's the side of it that I think needs to be said out loud. Like, what you see
Yeah.
produced, Tasha is mostly our editor for almost everything that we do. And, it's exhausting. We tried the 3 a week, and it was a way to get us some money coming in. I'm not saying Beyond the Brand's going away. I'm saying that there might be 2 or 3 spots a month for those Beyond the Brand episodes. Maybe, if we get them, and I think that's important to say too. Those Beyond the Brand episodes are a paid episode sponsored by whatever company decides to do that. And so those are a specific situation, but it's been, I would say, very stressful to try and sell everyone every week. And, we've dialed it back the last couple weeks, only doing a couple. And it's because of that. And, again, like the community spotlights, everyone loves doing the community spotlights. We are usually booked out for that weeks in advance. And so when we record those, they're, sometimes we'll have 4 or 5 in the can, which is wonderful for us on this side of things. But it also means that that'll be more limited going into season 3. So, and I think that's okay. Like, I think that we can still build the community this way. And who knows, maybe we'll throw an extra one in on the Patreon as it grows again. I don't know. Patreon seems to have been the thing we've not been able to make work with the amount of content we're putting out.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll get back to like a special episode every, week on Patreon. I or every month. I think it's every month.
Yeah.
I think we were supposed to do a mini and a full, and I know we haven't done one in probably 4 months now where we've done an actual.
It's been a hot minute. It's
right.
I think, yeah. And I think, that comes down to like, there's so much. And at some point you have to say, wait a minute, what's working and what's not working. And when there's just 2 of you,
well, and burnout is real,
Yeah. Yeah.
So Tasha and I had a really weird conversation about, I was in Maine, so it's been a hot minute, but it's, she talked about possibly leaving the podcast, not in bad terms, just in a tired terms. Tasha, where are you sitting at that right now? I know you want to see the podcast survive and grow.
I do. I love this community. I love what this offers our community. And I love the opportunity that it gives people to tell their stories and to help others realize that they can do this if this is their passion, if this is what they want to do. But I also know that for me, we haven't been on the road that long, and kind of going into what this episode has been about. When you have been on the road for just a couple years, and then, you're spending your whole days working and then your whole evenings doing podcasting, there is no on the road with your family. You're just in your camper. And not that I don't love my camper. We're very, very blessed, but that also it carries a weight, that there's a very physical and mental burnout that happens. And so it's something that I had to heavily consider through a lot of tears, a lot of conversations with my family. It was very, very, very difficult to wait, but I think that this next season I need to step back so that I can focus on my family, so that I can focus on myself and, taking some self-care time. And so, I think what I would love to do is I would love to, come in once a month and, be part of the conversation. But I am going to have to step back because I do need to spend a little bit of more time with my family and a little bit more time just breathing. And
you know what? And that's okay. I've actually, since we talked, I have a couple people in mind to come in and do some co-hosting with me. I think we'll have guests that will fill nothing will fill the gap of you. You need to know that. But I am happy to hear that you at least want to come in from time to time. Like, even if you came on once every 6 weeks or so, like, we could build those rotations in at the beginning of the season. And so I'm super excited about that idea. And then those would be your episodes. They would be stuff you're passionate about. So we do have a road schooling mom that's going to be coming on.
which I'm really excited about.
And I can't tell you who it is because you got to come in for season 2 to find out.
Or season 3.
Right, season 3. So productive rest, what that looks like on the road. I think that's important. And you got us all teary-eyed. But I think it's important. I think it's important to talk about that because, we did have a co-host exit stage left in season 2. And that's not how we want to leave this. And I did consider stopping the podcast altogether. And I want people to know that that's not happening either. I have no idea what it looks like for season 3. So don't think that it's like all planned out because it's not. And this is the perfect episode for this. So as we started talking last night, I had nothing prepared. Tasha had nothing prepared. I'm like, we need to talk about, just slowing down in the RV community, what it was look like, so for us, it's meant, booking an extra campground for 2 weeks up the road instead of chasing the next stop, or skipping a rally that we'd normally go to, or more pool days, or fewer drive days, and making sure that those, worked out okay. So let's talk about some practical ways people can actually practice slowing down if they need to. There's still going to be people that are going to go out and do it all. Yesterday, the boys and Frank and I went out to City Museum here in St. Louis, Missouri. And would you believe we haven't been to St. Louis since 2013 when we hit the road?
Wow.
That's crazy, right? We've been on the road. We celebrated our 14th nomad anniversary on July 3rd. And so it's a whole thing. But the kids were teeny when we went to the St. Louis Zoo.
Yeah.
And like teeny, like so tiny. Like Judah was like under 2 years old.
I grew up in Kansas City and I don't think that I have ever been to the St. Louis Zoo.
Interesting.
Ever.
Well, City Museum was that place that everybody told me we had to go. And the kids all played.
Yeah.
So it was really neat. It was very cool, but it was definitely a busy day. But we don't do anything normal, meaning that we walked in at 12 o'clock and we walked out at 6:30.
Yeah.
And so we spent 6.5 hours inside that location and with the kids crawling underneath the floors. And I mean, it was, and I mean, you have to imagine this because Aaron is like, what, 6'3"? And I mean, thank God he's super skinny, but he like goes down in this hole and he comes out the other side. And I'm like, where did you do that? He goes, I'll show you, Mom. Let me take your phone. And so I have a video of what it looked like as he went. I would not have gone in that hole. I'm going to say that out loud. I would not have fit in that hole. Like it's like Blair Witch Project-y. I'm just saying. All right. So extending your stay.
Than the inside of the hole. It's Blair Witch.
All right. So one thing you can do is extend your stays. Instead of hopping sites as frequently, slow it down. Plan shorter trips is another one. More weekend visits, or if you're taking a week of vacation, go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Number one, a lot of the places will have a reduced rate those days. Number two, there will be less people, because there's still people working during the summer. Even though the kids are out of school, doesn't mean that the retirees, just so you know, they're waiting until all your kids go back to school to go back into certain places. It's okay.
Yeah.
I work camped for a while. They tell you that. They're not afraid to tell you that. In fact, one of the things that happened as we're doing this, I'm just going to totally sideline this. I was asked to debut the Rolling Roots unit, the chapter for Family RV Association at the rally that we were at over July 4th. And Danielle came to me. She goes, I saved you a table. And I was like, no one here is going to want to see my family chapter. Because, it was mostly retirees and very supportive retirees, mind you. But still, they were probably not joining my chapter. But one lady comes up to me, tapped my hand very sweetly, and she says, oh, honey. She goes, good luck with that. And I was like, oh, that's nice. And she goes, honey, I went on the road in an RV part of the year so that I could get away from my grandchildren. Kid you not. She literally said this to me. And I was like, oh, that's nice. I mean, what do you even say to that? And so I have some people that have been super supportive and super. So what I did was I made a front facing Facebook page, and I'll have to get the link to that to you. I will put it in the show notes.
Put it in the show notes.
If you're a family on the road and you're not a member of Family RV Association yet, you can like and follow the page without having to join FRVA. Now, to do any activities with it, you have to join FRVA, which is $99 a year. But,
get in there and get some information.
If we can get this thing off the ground, it's a viable way to do it. And so we would like to have a family area for Perry next spring going into Perry. I don't know what it looks like yet, but we're trying. And there's no guarantees that we're going to do it because Family RV Association for a long time wasn't family friendly. And so I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people feel that, but I think it's changing. I'd like to hope it's changing. I'd like to hope it's changing for the next group of people coming in, because the reality is your oldest is done with school. Mine are
Yep.
phasing out of school. I mean, like, I have a 14 and a 16. Well, they're going to be 15 and 17 sooner than I know it. And so my timeline's limited there too, in that
Yep.
capacity. So if we can get it going for the next generation of RVers, I'm all for it. And you don't have to be a full-time RVer to join the group. Like, you can be a part-time RVer. You can just go to rallies. Actually, one mom reached out to me after the fact and said, there was nothing for families to do. How can we change that? And so she's a member of another chapter. It's free to join our chapter. So the Rolling Words chapter. So if you're a member of FRVA, you can join the Rolling Words chapter if you have kids, if you have grandkids that you travel with. Not all grandparents are like the one lady I met. There's a lot of grandparents that travel with
Right.
grandkids. All right. So slowing down, let's go back to that for just a second. Saying no to a meetup or without guilt, and
Yeah.
feeling that, if it's too much for you, it's just too much for you right now. I
Yeah.
think that it's okay to say that. What about cooking? You guys do better at this than I do. You do more batch cooking than we do.
We do. And we, in our new to us RV, we have to do batch cooking anyway, because we still have not fixed so what people might not know is that when we had the pre-purchase inspection done, our inspector said don't use the stove and oven, because when he lit it, it did a weird thing. And so we need to replace the stove and the oven. So we've been in the RV, but we've not been using that. So everything that we do is done in the Instapot. Now we do have an Instapot that's like the Instapot that
Massive.
is also, yeah, it's massive, but it also has like the air fryer lid that you can switch it off with. And it's got all the bells and whistles. But so when we cook in it, what we have found is that if we make small batches, it burns more easily. If we make larger batches, we have fewer burn possibilities. So we make the full batches and then we don't burn as much, and usually everything turns out okay, and then that feeds us for quite a while. So that's typically what we do. And Matt actually invested in one of the burners that you guys have.
Oh, an induction.
Yes. And I think it's actually the one that you guys have, just the single top one, because it works with our pots and pans. And so we now have that to kind of get us through, when people want like scrambled eggs or something that's not a
Instapot.
big
Yeah.
pot of Instapot. But yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Well, and what's crazy is that's all we've used for years, like, is that one single
Hmm.
burner. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's doable. And we do it with a big family. So, the other thing I like to tell people is turn how far did you go maybe into how good did today feel?
Yes.
So yesterday was really good for us. It was the first time as a family that we've gone out and done anything together weeks. And I'm not saying we haven't done things in like one or two people. I'm saying that
Yeah.
all together we haven't done anything together. And we still didn't have Gus with us yesterday. So Theo was where we are. She's seeing a friend. And so they had plans yesterday. So they didn't come to City Museum with us.
Hmm.
And City Museum, it does cost money. I somehow thought it was free. But if you play outside, it's free. But if you want to go
Gotcha.
inside and see all the other stuff, there's more to it. But it was $37 for the day, or it was $37.99 for a pass.
Okay.
So we're going back.
And is that for the whole family?
So per person.
Or per person? Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, so it comes with, a whole card and the whole thing. But you can get
Wait,
rooftop at
37 a day or 37.99 for a pass? How long is
yes,
the pass for?
a year.
My heavens, y'all. I'm hoping you spent the extra 99 cents per person. This
We
is
did.
this
So
is
the only
a
person that
good
didn't get
call.
one yesterday was Theo. And so we figured that gave us the opportunity to go back at least one more time, because I'm sure we
Yes.
didn't see it all based on now, because my whole Instagram feed is full of reels from City
Yep.
Museum, because now I went there,
Uh-huh.
Facebook knows where I went. So
Now, I need to ask, and I'm really hoping that I don't have my cities mixed up, but I don't think that I do. Does the city museum, does it have a bridge that goes over a like a highway and you
Well, it's
can
their parking
stand
lot.
in it? See, maybe I'm getting cities mixed up. There was one that we took the kids to when they were little, and you would walk through a bridge to get into the museum area, but the bridge was like over the highway, and
Nope.
there were all of these
So
things
this
that you could
one
do.
has a bus on top of the
Uh-huh.
roof that you can go on
Ooh,
and you're hanging over the city. Yes.
I want to go to there.
Yeah, it was super fun. Frank and I even like the cave system that they have. They have this cave system built into the backside of it that I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, we won't fit in the caves. It's just for the kids. And I realized there was a whole walking path for grown-ups in the cave too. So it's not just a kids museum. I think
That's cool.
there's like a skate park section that has no skates, but you can run up and down all of them. And underneath them,
Okay.
there's like a tunnel for the littler kids. And then there's a
Uh-huh.
giant pencil. It's enormous. And so, and then they have fish. They have lots of fish. They have those fish you can stick your fingers in the water and have your hands cleaned. There's just so much to do,
Yes.
so in there that, I would give it a discredit if I told you everything that we did there,
Yeah.
but it was cool. It was very cool. I know you and Matt have had a very different type of summer. What
We
has your
have.
summer looked?
It's been really, it's been slow, but it's also been a lot of focusing on work and also focusing on just we were just trying to get to Maine to see Rosewood. We did we went to Gettysburg and we did spend one day. The two of us, we went out and we did the full like Gettysburg. We went to all the things. Um
That's heavy
it's
though.
it was
We did that in the
very
fall.
heavy. It was very heavy, but it's a lot of our summer has been, I feel like it's been trying to recoup from um maybe overextending ourselves through the winter and just trying to also find what our new kind of life looks like or what our new, yeah, I mean, because we don't have Rosewood with us. And, they're looking at like, what are they going to do when their work camp is over come November 1st? Where do they want to go? What do they want, And so right now, I don't think that they're coming back to the camper. I don't think they're coming back to the RV. And so,
And she's your
that,
first, so that's super hard.
yeah,
That natural
yeah,
progression is a whole thing, but at the
it's
same
a,
time, you gotta give it space to just
yep,
get
yep.
through
So
it,
it's,
and, I tell people all the time, we have a lot of adult children at this point in my life. Raising toddlers was easy. I
yeah,
didn't think so at the time,
I know.
but raising adult children that make their own decisions is so much harder because you have to trust that
Yeah,
you did an okay job as a parent, right?
yeah, 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 exactly. And they're doing great.
Yeah.
It's being up here has been wonderful. It's been great to see how much they're thriving. And, I meet people that they're working with and, their roommates, and to hear people say these like incredibly lovely things about my kid is just so heartwarming. Like it's the best feeling. But it's also this, we have to find our new rhythm, because I also know that like David is, he's starting to get interested in like what's next steps for him. And so, that kind of means like what's next steps for us. And so it's been interesting. The summer has been interesting. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of just resetting, I
Yeah.
think. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, we see so many families go off the road as their kids age out of the camper. And so we're hoping that's not you because you just
It is
bought a new
not
camper.
us. It is not us. What it is going to be is how do we help them get to their next stage? Like that, I think is the part that we're trying to maneuver, is like that,
Well, and it's not
like
easy.
in
I mean,
between,
yeah, that
which I
in
know
between
is
is just, yeah,
everybody.
Right.
Whether you're in an RV or in a sticks and bricks, when your kids are moving out, it's that like, how do we help them get set up in that next stage?
Yep.
And
But at the
that's where
same
we're at
time,
right
I
now.
think from RV life, it is different,
Mhm.
because they want to successfully launch. They don't want to have to boomerang
Yes.
back. And so I think
Yes.
that's important to say, and I don't know. I just, we did that this spring. We helped the boys move out and they ended up moving into our old camper for now. But
Yeah.
then we did the craziest thing ever in the downturn of events. We bought a truck because we couldn't leave them without a way to haul that camper.
Right.
And so, so we have a brand new Ram for, our old camper. So, there's a few days between those 2 years. And so, but we had no intention of buying a new truck, not with the economy the way it is. And so,
Right.
but sometimes you do things you need to do because your kids need it. And
Right.
it's not to like say, oh, I bought a new truck. In fact, I don't think we've even talked about the fact that we bought a new truck online at all because we don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it. It's a stretch for us. I mean, it means less eating out. It means less doing. And so we're
Yeah.
giving and taking just like everybody else out there. Business is not up for us. It's, it's
Mhm.
just like everybody else, 18 to 22% less jobs this summer. And so we're
Yeah.
just trying to dial it back and, get through it. But I also have to be honest, I should be the last person out there lecturing about how not to, or how to slow down this summer because obviously we didn't until like 3 days ago. We did the opposite, right? So we drove 2,000 miles each way to Freiburg, Maine, from
Mhm.
Texas to Escapade with Theo. So she was my alternate driver slash co-pilot. We even made an impromptu visit in stop in New York City on the way back because why not add a major city detour to,
Right.
already insane drive. So actually that was kind of a happy accident. My kid loves American Girl dolls. So there was this place in White Plains, New York
Mhm.
that literally we left Maine that morning. There was less than 300 miles. It should have been fine. We should have been there at 3 o'clock. We would have had plenty of time. We pulled in at 8 minutes till 5 before they closed. And the lady side-eyed her. I sent Theo in by herself and said, hey, go look around because I don't think I'm going to make it in by the time I find parking in White Plains, New York.
Right.
And so that is exactly what happened. And so once you're that far into the outskirts of the city, you have some choices to make. You have to go back to the highways that are all toll roads that are bumper to bumper traffic, or you can do what we did and drive the free roads through the city in bumper to bumper traffic because it seemed like a good idea at the time. So it takes you around the Beltway, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, at 8 o'clock that night, we were in Jersey City. And I said, let's stop for the night. Let's have dinner. Let's make an assessment of the situation. We'll see how far we are from here. And she said, can we go into the city? Now, what you don't know is last year we were supposed to go to New York City in the fall after Hershey.
Mhm.
And we did not. We could not. There was stuff that came up. We just couldn't go. So I called Frank and I said, hey, how do you feel about a really cheap date into New York City? And it's going to crush our timeline. Like, I won't be back on Monday. I'll probably be back Tuesday. And he's like, go for it. So we did American Girl. We went to Broadway. We went to Italy, like the little Italian area. She had gluten-free New York style pizza and
That's awesome.
a Caesar salad with gluten-free croutons. She didn't believe they were gluten-free. We went to Chinatown. We went to, I don't know, we went to a handful of places. We went to Central Park. None of these are in order in the way that we did them. But I mean, we did a whole adventure day. We walked, I don't know, it was like 8 miles, 7.8 miles, I think is what my phone said we walked. And then, the subways and all the things, because we took the subway from Jersey City over. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
everything was like that. And so I I can't tell you, hey, slow down. But then I drove home, right? Because now we're still
Yep.
there. We still have 3 days worth of driving to do. And we did. It was amazing. I don't regret it, but I also felt it. And so we got home. We had one day to unpack the truck, repack the camper, and get on the road to the FRVA event in Sedalia, Missouri, which we did. So, but it's also made me think a lot about a full summer that fills you up and a full summer that
Mhm.
just empties you out
Yeah.
because they can look
Yeah.
identical from the outside of people looking in. These bags under
Yeah.
my eyes are very real. Do you have a trade-off story that you would say that you've done this year specifically?
We I don't know if you remember, but early on, I think it was in January, my favorite podcast announced that they were going to be doing a live show at Radio City Music Hall. And I was like, oh, I'm going. Like, I'm going to see this. So I bought tickets for Matt and I to go see it because we were going to be up that way. So, a couple weeks ago, Matt and I left David at the campground with the RV, and we drove. We drove from Maine, and Matt said, "Hey, what if we left tonight instead of tomorrow morning?"
Good
And
call.
right. And he said, we're 2 hours from Boston and the Red Sox are playing the Yankees at Fenway, and there are tickets in the cheap seats where we've not sat. And he said, I can get us tickets and then we can drive an hour, stay at a cheap hotel, and that cuts an hour off of our drive time tomorrow morning to get into the city. And I had already gotten our hotel for the night after the podcast show. And I was like, really? We can do that? And he said, yeah, we can do that. So we got done working. We packed everything up. We jumped in the car and we drove to Boston. I got to yell Yankees suck at the Yankees in Fenway, sitting next to the Green Monster. It was amazing. We beat the Yankees. It was amazing. And then we slept in a little hotel, got up the next morning, drove the rest of the way in, got to the hotel in New York City after a lot of detours. I think the New York City police were practicing for Taylor Swift's wedding because there was no reason for all of these detours. It made zero sense. But our hotel was literally less than 5 minutes of a walk from Radio City Music Hall. It was just down the street. We finally got there. The parking garage was right next to the hotel. We park, we go in, and the guy said, "You've been upgraded." And I said, "Excuse me, I didn't pay for an upgrade." And he said, "Sometimes good things happen." And I was like, what? So we go in, we got a king suite, and it was beautiful. And then we needed to find a place to eat. We walked out and we were like, well, let's try this Filipino place. We walked and found it. It was around the corner and it was this huge, you walk in and it was just all of these. It reminded me of this warehouse place that I love in LA that has all of these different restaurants in this one floor of this warehouse, and you just jump around and pick what you want. We go in and it's all of this South Asian food stands in this one building. We got the most amazing food. And then we got ready. We went to the Morbid show, and then we went back and had the most amazing night of sleep. We got up the next morning. Breakfast was built into the bill. I had the most amazing breakfast. We got up, we walked the city a little bit. We drove back to Maine, and it was the best little 2-night excursion, just Matt and I, just going out and doing something that was just supposed to be like a one night, hey, remember when I bought these tickets back in January? But it turned into just a really nice weekend that the two of us got to have. And Matt had never been down in New York City. And I don't know, it was just really nice. It was very fast. And
like my whirlwind day in New York City. I understand this. We spent 2 nights in the area. We slept that night there, then we slept the next night there. And so same hotel, we just, stayed the same place. And there was a fire drill the morning we went into New York City. So we're getting ready. Oh yeah, no. I mean, somebody pulled the fire alarm. So, I mean, it was stressful, but it was, yeah. But I mean, I think that, what makes a trip like that worth the exhaustion is you do get rested in some ways that you don't get rested in other ways. The New York City detour with Theo alone was something we'll remember for a very long time. Connecting in Sedalia, versus, what we'll do next time in Sedalia. Sedalia is not where FRVA goes every year. In fact, they announced that next year's event is going to be in Shawnee, Oklahoma in the summer in August. And so
nice.
I'm not sure that that's, there's that. So the other thing is we have been playing, because I am crazy that way, the Learn to RV Great American Scavenger Hunt. And so have you seen some of the pictures this week? They've been fun. People have been posting their postcards in there. So you have to like take a picture of
Oh,
yourself and make a postcard out of it. So we've done that this week. We actually put ours inside the group this week too. But it's the week 3. When this airs, it'll be week 3 of the Great American Scavenger Hunt. And it kicks off with like flamingos and floaties. Like this is the pool and luau week. So it's going to be so much fun. But here's the thing about this week. Doesn't matter where you are.
right.
All you have to do is register on RV, join the Facebook group, and the Facebook group's just for fun and shenanigans. You don't have to join the Facebook group, but it's kind of a connection spot. There's more prizes this week. We have over $4,000 in prizes that we're giving away the month of July at Learn to RV. And so that's enormous. And I think the more people we have play, the more people we'll have come on next year when we do this all over again. There's been some challenges with points the first week. We had some challenges with RV the first week. It's our first year using it. It's a great resource. And John was wonderful to come on board and say, hey, I can take this on. And so he sponsored that side of the hunt. So, I mean, we're just grateful for that. But it's going to open the door to future hunts for us, I think. And I think there'll be a few more shorter hunts throughout the year now. Looking at it, we're looking at possibly the next one being like a 3-day Halloween hunt, which could be fun.
Ooh.
But yes,
Yes.
so, themed hunts kind of thing. And then, the more people we get playing and registered for each event, the better the sponsors get. I was told by one sponsor that was an e-bike company, and I can't tell you who, but basically if we got to 1,000 players, they would sponsor an e-bike. We're not even close. I'm not sure we'll get there this year. But, that's kind of the numbers that we have to have in order to get those bigger sponsors. So we do have some great sponsors, Open Roads is sponsored. The RVAC Silencer has sponsored. We have lots of smaller brands and companies. And that's what makes this thing different, right? Is that, smaller businesses are sponsoring and able to sponsor. We also have 5 2-night stays to different campgrounds, one of which is Firefly Hills, Kentucky. Another one is Southern Charm Campgrounds. And there's a whole series of campgrounds there. And then Sun Outdoors actually gave us 2 2-night stays. And one of those will be in play this week during the scavenger hunt. So Myrtle Beach, Sun Outdoors, 2 nights is on the line for one person this week. But what's neat about it is you can do it from wherever you are. And you can jump in and do as much as you like. So last week's pictures were fun. There was a Made in America thing. And I actually had to go to My Pots and Pans, which they made in America, and show people, this is what we mean. Not hang it. There's some people that hung signs around their children's necks. And we had to say,
creative.
Those don't count. So because if those count, then there's no real winners, right? And so there's that side of it. We also had one player that had a super fun entry. One of the items on there is find a pinball machine or a jukebox. So I know both of those are difficult to find, but they are here in the United States, and it's 66 vibes last week. And so we thought, okay, so somebody took a box and they wrote the word juke on it. Super creative.
That is very creative.
And it's an honorable mention to the highest degree, because I would have never even thought of that. But we couldn't award points for it because the people that do find it have to get the points. So it is a little bit harder this week. We did modify one of them because we realized people are not moving states as often right now. So we said, well, if you're not near a state sign, go get your town sign or the closest city sign to you. And so we're making some modifications to a lot for the slower travel. And so that was kind of the heart behind, what this like. But this week, go find a floaty, find a flamingo, jump in, snap some pictures, put them in on RV. You could win points on the Learn to RV Summer Scavenger Hunt. And so we'll drop the link in the bio for that one right to the website. Don't forget to register on RV because that's where the points count.
Yes.
All right. Well, if you're listening to this and you're still feeling behind, that's okay. Or if you feel like you're guilty of wanting a slow week, or if you're one of the rigs that hasn't left the driveway this summer, that's okay too. If you're more like me this year, chasing big trips and feeling it in your bones, that's also allowed. Just check in with yourself. Figure out what you're running on. Tell us in the comments your permission to slow down moment. This is what I did that was the opposite of what I thought I would do story. We'd love to hear your stories. And don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe Learn to RV the podcast. You can catch us on all the channels on Spotify and iHeartRadio and lots of others, Apple Music and more. But also, you can also catch the actual video on YouTube if you want to. So just hit the follow button so you don't miss one each week. And as for season 3, we still haven't figured it out yet, but we will. And we hope you'll be here for all of it. We've got a few more episodes in season 2. There's some good ones coming. We appreciate each and every one of you. And Tasha and I, thanks for joining Learn to RV, the podcast. See you soon.